If I tap the D key on my keyboard, just D all by itself, what that will do is that will switch my foreground and background colors back to their default, which is really nice. And sort of along with that one, I'll show you one more here. We have the X key on our keyboard. And if you keep your eyes down in this color area down at the bottom of your toolbox, as you're tapping your X key, you'll see that X is flipping the foreground and background color with one another. So this is really nice as I'm working along inside my image. You know, I'm coming along in here and maybe I accidentally go outside the object. Well, I can just tap the X key and then fill that area back in, and maybe I go a little bit too far and X one more time, back and forth, something like this, right? The other thing that I wanted to show you as well is it can be a bit of a drag when I start working in some of the more detailed areas. If I start zooming in here a little closer on my image, maybe the brush size that I've selected here is a little bit too large, even to get into this corner, say where the Buddha's sort of side of his head, his neck meets his shoulder there. I can't really get in there. So it's a bit of a drag to have to constantly go back to the options bar at the top and then, you know, drop down the size of my brush and try and, you know, get in there, wind up painting with the wrong color, fill that in, and I still can't really get in there. So then I come back and I try a different size and, you know, kind of back and forth, back and forth. Maybe I need to come back and increase the size. I'm sure you get the idea here. It's a lot of back and forth, right? So what I'd like to do instead is show you some keystroke shortcuts to, again, help you move along a little bit faster. You know your square bracket keys on your keyboard? Well, check this out. If I tap the open square bracket key just beside the P key on your keyboard, that will reduce the size of my brush, something like this, so I can get into these tight areas, you know, something like this. And then if I use the close square bracket key on my keyboard, that will enlarge the size of my brush, allowing me to take out larger parts of that red overlay in my case here. So the open square bracket reduces the size of your brush. The close square bracket key increases the size of your brush, which is great. Okay, so there you go. So D, X, and your open square bracket and your close square bracket to help you along here. So the idea here is that I would want to come into my image here, and you can see I'm already trying to get started here, and I want to come along and create a nice, I'm going to switch over to my move tool just so I can point here. I want to create a nice crisp line right along the edge of the object that I'm trying to select. Okay, that's really what I'm after. And as far as the rest of the image goes, the background, as you can see, there's large areas of the background that are selected. So I'd want to make sure that they're filled with red. So what I would do in that case is I'd tap the B key on my keyboard to flip back to my brush tool. I'd make sure that black is in the foreground, so I had to tap my X key on my keyboard, maybe increase the size of my brush by tapping on the close square bracket key on my keyboard and just kind of paint over top of these background areas, something like this, right? Kind of get in there and fill the entire background in this red overlay, something like this, right? So give me a second there just to make sure that I have it all in there. Now, your selection at this point, by the way, doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. I'm going to show you some tricks in a moment to get this even more precise. But for the time being, all I want you to do, and all I'm going to do on my side, is try and get a decent selection all the way around the outside edge of my object. I'm really not too concerned about what's going on inside the statue, sort of the interior. What I want to focus on is the edge of the object. Okay, so maybe, you know, something like this. I'd come in here, even a smaller brush would be just fine. Coming in here and just kind of, again, establishing sort of that hard edge all the way around it. And again, if you go outside something like this by accident, don't forget you've got your keyboard shortcuts to help you out. Just tapping X to switch over to black, which will allow you to come back in and paint that over. And sometimes I wind up going too far the other way, so I've got to flip back over to white and come back in and get rid of this stuff here. So again, what I'd like you to do, and I'll leave it up to you to do this on your own, is, again, come along and try and establish this nice refined edge all the way along the outside of your object. And it might take you a little while to get this. Trust me, though, it's going to be worth it. And again, I got to reiterate this. Don't worry about the inside of the statue. We're going to blow all the interior out in just a couple of mouse clicks in just a few moments here once we get through this. So I'm going to leave that up to you. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit here. I'm going to leave it up to you to go all the way around the outside edge of your Buddha statue. And once you've got that done, I'll catch up with you and we'll finish this guy off.